If I may have your attention, according to my clock, we have 3:32, so I see that we do have a quorum. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First of all, welcome. Good to see you all. It's been 2 months. Hope everybody's been well. Doing okay. We'll get started up with the various committee report outs. Mr. Johnson, maybe start with you with the, and I forwarded you all those his notes. Start with you with the racial equity, please.
Certainly. Did we miss the part of adding anything to the agenda?
Well, yes, we did. It's been 2 months since we
I was like, I didn't think it was too late. No. Okay.
All right, let me go back then. We're going to call the meeting to order. Look at the agenda, please, and if we have any additions, please, to the agenda. What would you like to add down here? Can we put it at the discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
One obviously is the bylaws, which I think might be on the business. The
Right.
other is want to talk about the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging training study that was done with LFUCG last year. We'll talk about that.
Okay. That's included, I believe, in your it's referenced at one point in your.
It's referenced in there, but,
okay.
But I have a request.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Do we have anything else to add? Do we need to, Miss Brown? Do we need to add a report?
It's on there.
Oh yeah.
Your business week.
Child, it is. I saw it. All right. If there's nothing else to add, may I have a motion to approve the agenda with the edit, with the addition?
So moved.
Second. All right. All, any discussion? All right. All approved? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Now we'll go to the committee reports and report out. We can start with racial equity, please.
Yes, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. We had a really good committee meeting last month. We started out by having, and again, you all have seen sort of the minutes. I'm just going to give you like that, the very high points. Director Brown started out by giving us sort of an update on her efforts around researching an equity report for Lexington. As you may remember, at our February committee meeting, we talked about and then came back to the commission in March with a recommendation for Lexington to commission a report. So we talked about, she talked about that a bit, gave us a price tag. I think the estimate for a equity report is around $200,000 based on comparable cities of comparable size. And the committee had a robust discussion around timing. Is that something that we wanted to seek during this particular budget cycle versus sort of holding off on that? And ultimately, we all agreed that something that we wanted to wait until the next budget cycle. One, because the mayor's draft had already been submitted to the council, and to sort of improve our chances of getting the financial support for that, we thought that we would wait, try to see if we could even garner any private funds to help serve as a lever for LFUCG's future investment in the report if it's adopted. So really good discussion. We had a subject matter expert invited to our meeting, Dr. Roger Cleveland, who gave insights on our goals that we set for ourselves as a committee, and talked about a little bit about his training that he did with the LFUCG staff, and gave some advice to us on how to take a systemic approach to gathering information for that equity report. And then we, as a committee, had some questions that we wanted to bring back to this body. Namely, in our March meeting, we brought back a set of recommendations that we wanted to immediately be adopted. And during our committee meeting, we realized we're not sure if anything happened with that, if there's some sort of special process, because we're all new at this, that needed to be enacted. So namely, there was two recommendations. One, that we change our name from the Racial Justice and Equality Commission to the Racial Justice and Equity. But wanted to, and we all accepted that at that commission meeting in March. We sort of gave it a thumbs up, but we didn't know how to actually make that recommendation to the administration for hopefully acceptance and adoption. So we want to follow up on that with the full commission, as well as we recommended that Lexington adopts a equity report. So we wanted to follow up on those two things, since we feel like that doesn't necessarily need to wait until we do our annual report out to the mayor. Those are two things that we feel like could be adopted sooner, or at least recommendations that could be adopted sooner.
Say the last one, I know the name changed, what was the last?
Is to recommend Lexington commissions a equity report. And that would be for next year, since we've opted not to make a request this budget cycle.
Fiscal year 2024.
That's it.
Remind me, Dr. Cleveland, I thought had already, at the time, I talked to him a while back, that was already in process, his work, surveys and so forth.
So he has done that work. I guess the discussion point that I was going to bring up is that at the time that he talked about this, none of us on this committee had seen it. And we thought that it would be a good idea that just not our committee, but the entire commission would have access to sort of the results of that training and the surveys that he's done.
So are the results available?
I am pretty sure, I think he mentioned that it was available, it's been available for some time now. So we wanted to bring that as a recommendation that we all have access to that. So
Did his surveys constitute a report, or was it just some surveys?
It was a report of LWCG.
But we're talking about an
So
equity report
is
for the
different.
city.
Yeah, so that's a different
Okay.
request. That's he did something different, but apparently it's been available for a few months, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I haven't, and I'm pretty sure that no one else has. And as sort of with our mission, I think that it makes sense that we see that.
It's guiding document.
Absolutely.
So are you asking the body to, right now,
So in terms of Dr. Cleveland, I'm asking the body to request that for all commission members. So we can at least have access to that and sort of read up on it and maybe have some future, I'm sure there'll be information or requests or things that'll come out of that in the future.
Right.
So to make that request, but also the two recommendations that we made in March that we accepted, how do we start the work on that? How do we start the ball rolling on?
that's the name change.
The name
of the
change,
equity report.
right. We want to make those recommendations to Mayor Gordon, and then whatever the process is to have her formally accept, because it's a recommendation, and then accept, how do we go about implementing if she accepts it?
May I have your permission to work with Ms. Brown?
Absolutely. You're the chair. We serve at your pleasure.
Work. Are you all okay with that if I work with Ms. Brown to see how that happens? Because you're right, because I'm new to this government process too.
Yeah, didn't the council, they voted on the name, right?
Yes.
So we just go back, recommend that they have to re-vote on it, change the name.
It's just that since we don't have any formal power, everything we do is in the form of a recommendation.
We're just
so-
recommending,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
And that's what our job is, though, right?
Exactly.
It's just that
So
recommend.
whoever we need to recommend it to, I just want us to do it because we've lost 2 months now. No fault of anybody, but I don't think we all know what do we do next. We agree that it's a good idea. Now what?
I think that has really been the confusing part about getting started with the commission, because there was no set rules. And so I'll make sure that I follow corrections, racial justice, and equity.
Correct.
Commission. Okay.
So I guess you can actually even probably remove that discussion point because we discussed it. We're asking for the commission to request Dr. Cleveland's work so we can review it and go from there.
That's the DEIB study.
Yes.
Okay, so any questions for Mr. Johnson or any members of the Racial Justice and, the Equity Committee? I keep getting the name wrong. Yeah, reset.
One question, did Dr. Cleveland, did he share that with the committee already?
He didn't because his customer was LFUCG, so he gave the product to whomever.
Okay.
So he made us
So
aware that
LUCG has it,
it's
we just
available.
need it.
It's been available, so I just want to
I
make sure
got
that we find out who has it and distribute it.
I got you.
Question, Ms. Brown, is it in electronic form that can be sent to us?
I was just
Do you have to
talking
get
to Mr.
permission?
Cravens. I need to find out if it's final,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can, and once it's final, then we can distribute it.
Okay. When you do find out, can you share with this body so that at least keep us update, so we're not just sitting around, looking for there's a next step or whatever that needs to take place? Thank you. And then I'll talk to you about the other recommendation.
I think it is on the record that everyone agreed
It was
to those
both, yeah,
recommendations.
right.
We just have to figure out how to publish them. That's it.
Y'all are a little different than working with SBDM council at school. A lot different. Not more steps. No further questions for Mr. Johnson. So I don't think we have to approve,
Guess it's just for information.
this information. There's no motion that's needed to get the thing approved because we've already talked about the name change. All right, Mr. Wells is not here, but he did share out the notes of the Law Enforcement Justice and Accountability Committee. Is there a member on that committee that can speak in his absence?
I am.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And we welcomed Phil as a new member to the committee. From our first subcommittee meeting, one of the biggest questions was in gaining more in-depth information around particular chunks of the recommendations that seem to have had no updates or progress attached to them. So just understanding more about where those recommendations stemmed from, especially knowing that many of them are outside the purview of what city government can do, certainly outside of what we can do. So where did those stem from in terms of still making it into the report if it was known that it was not of city government duty to make changes to those spaces? We met with Mr. Cozart, who is the chair for that section of the subcommittee. There was a larger full report that had the discussion around this that we at the time did not have access to, so the conversation was really more informational as opposed to constructive. But one of the things that he shared was in acknowledging that it was really outside the purview of the city to change the things that were being recommended. The subcommittee still felt at the time that it was critical to have them written down from a place of acknowledgement that these were issues that they saw inside of policy and structure and just wanted it to be known. So there was no further, again, really in-depth or constructive conversation about it because the rest of the committee hadn't received the report. So we couldn't, it was really challenging to kind of ask questions about something we hadn't read yet. So I think the intent is to bring him back for a separate conversation now that we have their full report.
Bring Mr. Cozart back.
And Phil, if you remember to please.
No, I think, no. Summation of everything.
Any questions? Very good. I'm gonna stop and pause and go back, charge it to my head, not my heart. Let me introduce, if you've not met our new commission member, Mr. Phil Jones.
All right. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Doing
I tell you, I'm out of practice. But that's all right.
I know there's a new face there. I'm like,
And you shouldn't be sitting by you.
See, I know,
Hey. Very good.
Want to give him a chance to introduce himself?
Oh, sure, sorry. My name is Phil Junn. I'm currently the Director of Public Relations and Strategic Initiatives over at LexArts. So I'm working on helping to let people know what LexArts does and try to form new partnerships and programs to kind of sort of help reach some of our new strategic plan goals. So And our office is on Mill Street, on Mill and Church, right by that big parking lot by what used to be Postmaster's Pub. It's that tall 4-story building that used to be a YWCA. And I'm a transplant here, moved here in July of 2021.
Good. Brings some whole different perspective to the table. That's what we need, so you're very welcome. Mr. Castro, for the Education and Economic Opportunities, is out. He had let us know that he would not be here. At our meeting, it was not what we discussed basically was that I remember from the meeting was that the downtown Lexington Management District had contacted him in reference to the summer youth job program, if I've titled it correctly. I think it's a program that's out of Partners for Youth. And you were there, is that correct? No. That's the, but I think their main concern was how to get the information out to the young people that I guess they needed contacts, because this is their Partners for Youth program that they started, that's kind of stopped when the pandemic was going on. So they're trying to get it started back up, and they have 400 slots, and they're requesting more business partners. So we asked those of us who have received information from Mr. Castro, asked exactly what did they need as far as if they needed just contacts, how to get the information out to schools, and we haven't heard back. And so that was the majority of what we talked about, actually, and how to find business partners beyond the typical jobs that young people have, like, fast food. Nothing wrong with that, anything, but trying to get them into more professional type of business partners from nursing, cosmetology, construction, mechanics. So I don't know if he got back, if he made contact with him after our meeting, or if they have not gotten back with him. But we were primed and ready to give him some contacts, because one initially would work with high school, the resource centers, and through, and although the structure of most high schools has changed in the time that I've retired, but they do have, I know the Friskies are really working with, they have a lot of community partners, and especially the schools that have structured themselves with academies. That's just press prime for what they do. So we're still working with that.
Mr. Chair, you said 400 slots. Did you mean like their needs?
I think there were 400 slots that are available.
Oh,
Partners for you, for jobs, I guess, that the kids could apply
that
for.
kids can apply for
Right.
those, but they need partners
They
to
need-
help fill those as well.
I think that's what they have so far.
Oh, okay.
And, no, they have 400 slots, and right now they have 382 partners who are providing those slots. So they want
okay.
more to try to reach that 400 goal and beyond.
Nice.
Because if they're really gonna be struck, they need more than 400 slots, for all of Lexington.
More business partners or more students?
More business partners and students. Well, they want to have more students, but they can't have more students because they need more slots.
Okay.
Business partners.
Well, the last update I had was
Okay.
382 students have registered out of the 400.
Oh, that's that number, the
Yes.
382 that are registered, that's the students.
Okay.
For the 400 slots. And that's why they wanted more than, because that's already, most, let's just face it, most kids, the school's gonna be out this month. I was working as always June. But, kind of gonna wait till the last minute, realize I want a job, I need a job, and so it would be helpful. So we'll follow up after. I know he was gonna leave him alone right now because he's out ill. So we'll follow up and work on that. Because all of us have some ideas about various businesses that we think would welcome that. But of course, the kids in certain areas would have to be vetted very carefully, just because of whatever goes with the job. Questions?
I don't want to speak on behalf of Partners Youth, but wanted to kind of explain how the program works. Partners for Youth will pay up to 400 kids around $15 an hour to work at different businesses. And so what they need is those businesses to house those kids. So for instance, if you got a business, you got one, they'll put 3 kids at your place, and they pay for them to do whatever work that you want them to do.
Oh,
They
wow.
want them to be in a professional setting, more or less, like you were pointing out. They want them to be in a setting where they can do some labor, but also learn a trade or a skill based on that business. So that's how it works. And
So they're paying the income, they just need a
They just
home.
need, they need the partnership. The cost of partnership, nothing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what can happen out of those partnerships, actually, if the student does well for them, they'll hire them
Yeah.
beyond the summer.
And I'm assuming it's different age ranges. If it is, as a potential work site, can you have a preference for a certain age? Because you may have work that's appropriate for older versus younger. Is that something that you could?
Now, we didn't talk about that, but that stands
that
to
is,
reason.
so they do, at their high school age, they've already had a job fair where they asked businesses to come set up their tables, and when kids came there, they walked around and almost did like an impromptu interview. You sold yourself like, I want you to work with me because this is what you would be able to do. So they had one already. If they plan another one, I'm not sure, but they also had a change of leadership at Partners for Youth as well. So, but they're still moving forward with
Is
the
that
programs.
Shanika Shackelford?
Yeah, yes. And so, yes, you're right. So you can kind of, it's a match.
On your application, you can identify specifics.
So as far as you know, are the applications already in the schools? Well, I guess they are. You said 382 have applied.
There's only 18 more opportunities available.
Right.
Exact.
And that was at the last time that we, got the number.
And so Partners for Youth already is connected with a lot of youth programs. And so their first source of student human capital, whatever you want, is to those programs to get those kids a job for the summer. It's a great program. It's something very necessary, but you're right. 400 sounds like a lot, but
No, it's not.
considering,
2 schools could take that.
yeah, considering how many students, yeah, especially in a professional setting like,
Yeah, something to keep in mind for next year. I didn't know about it, but something that I'm sure more companies, if they know that this opportunity is out there, would participate.
it's on the LFUCG website. So that's actually where they would go to even apply, and it starts there.
I think it would be helpful to learn more, even just learn about the program, how they may have recruited in the past students and employers. And then even seeing are the numbers increasing, decreasing? So I think it'd be helpful for us if we knew a little bit more background and historical context.
For Partners for You?
Mm-hmm.
Can we invite them?
Because you never want to recommend stuff that they're already doing. We don't want to assume that there's strategies and things they're not already.
Well, it wasn't about this body recommending, because I asked specifically what do they want us to do, and really just to identify more
Tell people where
business
to.
partners. And he had questions for them because they didn't make that known of exactly what they wanted us to do. So that's why I'm talking about they didn't get back with us exactly.
Okay.
Because I'm like, that's an easy fix. We could just name just on that Zoom meeting just different partners and call immediately. But they were really at that point just making him aware of it and the need for more business partners.
Okay.
So we will follow up with that. Soon, because school will be out. What's the last day? The 26th? You know what? I'm gonna get in touch with y'all. All right, if I just get in touch with Mr. Castro, if he's answered the phone and ask him if he doesn't mind me, because I just contacted Ms. Shackelford. Anything else? All right, Ms. Turner, how about housing and gentrification?
I apologize, we didn't get to meet, on our Zoom meeting, I was out of town, and
Oh, yes.
there were no really updates. If any of my committee members have any updates?
No, I do not.
can you speak since we're on this topic in reference to what I just saw on the news about there's an initiative about the eviction?
I would prefer to have Commissioner Lancer speak on it.
Oh, well, yeah, that's right, he was on, yeah, I saw him, okay, I didn't know if you knew about it, okay. All right, health disparities, Ms. Sass.
All right, so bear with me. We've had a lot of thoughts, a couple of meetings, and my report out may not be as streamlined as I had hoped. But so we met. We also did the same thing as far as looking at the previous report and looking to see what objectives they recommended and what the updates were. So we were trying to identify sort of where everyone left off and what we might want to continue and not continue. We did agree to continue with their objectives and goals from the previous commission as our objectives and goals. We also talked a lot about how health disparities really spans all of these subcommittees, and we're having a really hard time sort of drawing the line of what's a health disparity versus the racial justice and even housing and all of that. So a lot of discussion about that, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But one of the things that we wanted to do was bring the community health workers in Fayette County together in a session for more of an informational session for us, just to see where their successes are, where their barriers are, and being able to help the communities within Fayette County to help guide us in the direction that we may want to go in making recommendations to the commission. So that's one of the things that we are further looking into. The other thing that we talked a lot about is creating a web of knowledge of available opportunities, which goes right into this whole Partners for Youth and not knowing that it was available and they need business partners and that kind of thing. So we're looking at that because it's the education opportunities. It's what happens after high school and college and jobs and all of that does affect health disparities in the end, and what happens with that. We've also talked about being able to push out the information in multiple languages, not to everyone, so that through like maybe public service announcements or something that would be in multiple language that would be beneficial to all. And then Timothy, you've talked about in the Racial Justice Committee about like a department or something similar to that to look at all of the policies and make sure that the language is appropriate. And so we've talked
I'm sorry, yeah, that's one of our recommendations that we are still sort of talking about. We haven't delved into it yet, but it's something a little different than what we currently have, something that exists outside of the mayor's office, but has sort of a senior line of sight to being on the mayor's senior team. That way, that office has the teeth, for lack of a better word, to make sure that if there's policies that are inequitable, they can actually, they have levers to get some change going. So
we were sort of building upon that as far as when we were talking about the housing and the transportation being an issue with health disparities and how could we better manage that. And 2 meetings ago, I think the report out was that there were pockets of housing that was going to be available, but when you applied for that, you applied to this housing unit or you applied to that housing unit, and this person over here that doesn't know about this may actually be eligible or fall in the line for this unit before someone else. And so we were trying to think of how we could make that more equitable across Fayette County and not just in subsections of the county. And so we were thinking that maybe someone within this department could sort of manage that, and not the right terminology, but sort of like an Expedia of housing. Like you would just put your application in, and then where you fell in line based on your need, you could go wherever. And if you didn't want to move to that area, then you could certainly turn it down. But if you had that opportunity, then it would be there for you. So we were talking about that. And then out of that sort of discussion, well, also the transportation, like partnering with an Uber Health or those things for people who needed transportation for whatever reason, could be healthcare or to the food pantry or to submit their application for housing if they couldn't do it online or couldn't figure out how to do that, that would have people to help them manage. Maybe community health workers would be a part of that. So all of that discussion really led us into looking at areas that have declared racism as a public health emergency. So we're exploring that more as a subcommittee and what that would look like. Through the places that we've looked at it, it's mainly through like a strategic plan for the county and what they want to do and move forward, and again, very early development stages, but the discussion would be when we make our recommendation to the council, we could do that under the umbrella of declaring racism as a public health emergency, and these are the things that we would like to see at this department that manages the language of the policies and procedures, transportation, housing, education, all of that. So again, very early stages, but just wanted to sort of throw all of that out there and sort of how we're thinking all of this really ties in together. So that's where we are. We have obviously more work to do, but
That's a lot.
yeah.
That's a whole lot.
So, and I do have notes, and I can send those out to you guys.
You have them electronic?
Yes, I do have them electronic, yeah.
Just so we can help a reference, that's what I keep all
Yep.
this stuff together.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a comment that the idea of having an Expedia type of database, so there's a one-time application instead of having to submit several, I think that's a great idea. And one of the concerns about eligibility, they could have built-in parameters for preference, work location, and bus routes. So I see a lot of potential with that, so.
Yeah, I'll put that down, I thought that was good. That would be a big help. Any other questions from Ms. Sayers? Okay, so just to go back to review, right now we have, no committee is submitting or making a recommendation other than what we've already done in March, and I'm gonna follow up with Ms. Brown about that to learn how to do it, if we can do it, and then we want to ask for the results of the DBI study, for the DEIB study. Lexington County Government. So, very good. And we've already, what we've added to discussion, we already talked about that. That was the study, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're efficient.
Yeah, my practice. All right, let's move on then to an old business. We talk about the bylaws. You can have them because I printed out.
I found what you sent out. I have a copy for you and I'm Vice Chair. I sent the rest around. That's the document I believe you sent out in November where you collected Jessica's, Jahida's, and my recommendations.
Right, okay.
For the life of me, it eluded me until like before I left out the office. So that
I printed about everything I had because I needed a different set of eyes. That's
Sure.
why Dr. Wright.
So those are the originals, and that's sort of the document that was created, I guess, based on like those originals.
Okay.
And I guess I brought this up because the one meeting that I missed in, I believe, December is when bylaws were accepted or finalized and voted on, but I noticed that it didn't incorporate the suggestions.
Is this, what the suggestions?
Those were my suggestions.
That were not.
These were Jessica's suggestions, and I believe.
But I had Dr. Wright look at both before we got started, and she went through Ms. Sass's and said both hers was included in the language, but this.
But definitely mine weren't.
Yeah, that's what we missed. And she made one.
Yes.
That's what got approved.
This is what got approved.
She took notes quickly in this, for, like right here. Is that what you?
So, in the version that you sent out, not only did the three of us have sort of suggestions, there were some other suggestions that I don't know we actually said no to or yes to. It's just a sort of a hanging issue that I don't think we reached a decision point. And then I also noticed that in the finalized ones, there's a line or sentence in here that does not track to any of our changes. So I don't know where this phantom edition came from, which was a little troubling as well.
Well, Mr. Cravens is here to, yeah.
So I'm not sure if the city made a change or not, but it just wasn't attributed to anyone, so I wasn't sure. So I highlighted that just to bring that up as well. It's, yeah.
This is what this is yours.
This is, no, these are the 3 suggestions that someone correlated for us.
May the rest of the commission have reference to where we're talking?
So I passed around sort of a document that captures some of ours. So the one,
I'll let you listen to that, stop interrupting.
sure, so the sentence I was talking about goes to Article 3, powers and duties, and it's bullet number 2, or bullet 2. So in all the other previous copies, that bullet says, setting goals, developing strategies for reaching those goals, and creating methods to measure progress towards those goals. But in the finalized one, that doesn't have sort of a name attributed to who created this, the sentence doesn't stop at goals, it says goals, comma, all in service of developing recommendations. And I just wanted to know where that comes from, in addition to some other missing recommendations.
Is that change?
It does change the meaning, but I just think that we should know where the language came from. You know, it's making, I'm not saying it's a bad change, it's just.
I think that's something that Tiffany and I discussed just because it tracks more with your all's charge under the ordinance. So, because under the ordinance, your charge is really to look at these things and make recommendations to council, and without that clause, it makes it seem like your jurisdiction is open-ended.
So the city,
So I guess we put that, when in conversation with Tiffany and I, we discussed it, we thought that would be a good clause to kind of tie this back to the jurisdictions established in the ordinance and make it clear that essentially you're doing what the ordinance charges you to do, which is make recommendations.
I'm fine, I just wanted someone to own it.
Yes.
So the city
Yes.
suggested it, okay.
Yes, yes.
That answers one question, but then
Okay,
there's missing language.
okay, keep going.
So like for instance, one of the changes that I made was Article 4, working group, actually starting at Article 3, powers and duties, where it says the focus areas of the commission in conduct of its work shall include, and the original language talks about the 5 areas. But I put language that says that shall include, but parenthetical, but not limited to, because I think we discussed some months ago that in the course of our work, we may decide that there's some other areas that's not just related to like these 5, and we don't want to limit ourselves to just being able to talk about these 5 areas.
I remember that discussion.
But I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it came back to the ordinance. The ordinance said we could only have these 5. So did
I don't have a copy of the ordinance with me, so I'm not sure. And if so, then that would prompt me to make a recommendation that we change that.
The ordinance reads, subsection, it says section 2519 of the code says established. Subsection 1. A commission is hereby created which shall be known as the Racial Justice and Equality Commission. And then subsection 2 reads, the focus areas of the commission shall be A, health disparities, B, law enforcement, justice and accountability, C, housing and gentrification, D, racial equality, and E, education and economic opportunity. So when I prepared the initial draft bylaws, I basically incorporated and relied upon those because that is what the ordinance charges you with. And so my only concern about including a language that would be including but not limited to is I would not want you all to expand your jurisdiction when that jurisdiction is established by the ordinance.
So this might get to the crux of the matter. Were some of these suggestions filtered out by the city? Because I'm asking the chair, what happened to our suggestions? It sounds like you made a decision.
I don't know if we discussed, I can't recall if it was discussed by the commission. I'm saying if we're discussing now, that would be my concern.
Okay.
All of the recommendations that were made were sent to Ms. Brown and Mr. Craven for his legal opinion about whether we could and if they were in bounds with the ordinance.
Right. But without that sort of report out to the group before the vote being taken.
But he was here that day.
When I asked folks, because I wasn't in the room, I was told that there was no discussion on it, that we voted to approve the bylaws in December, but without that important,
The final draft of the bylaws was sent out with the agenda. So that they were supposed to be reviewed prior to, and then if any questions, those were supposed to come to the floor, at that meeting. And there were no questions at that meeting, which, I understand.
Well, because I know when you brought it up, I was like, and then I remember the comment, there was no discussion, and it kind of threw me because I'm like, well, couldn't have got approved without any discussion.
so I'll lean to my colleagues who were here, because I wasn't here.
I don't have the final copy with me.
The one that got approved?
Yes.
Is there a way that we can go through the rest of these suggestions? from
Sure,
Mr. Johnson,
okay.
And then we can,
Sure. So I had the same sort of language about, but not limited to, so we talked about that in Article 3. In Article 4, working groups, we talked about each working group shall be composed of not less than, and I think the original language said not limited.
the original says 5, and I think your suggestion.
Mine said 3 and not more than 5. So if you look at the first page, Article 9, working groups. On page 4. So if you're looking at the markup that you said, yeah. It says Article 9, working groups. So there was a suggestion to lower the number to as low as 3, but not more than 5. And I think the theory behind that, because it's been a couple of months, was the fact that we saw that when we were comprising a lot of these working groups, because of the size of our group, with being 5, it required several of us to be on more than one group. So we wanted to make it sort of reasonable to say that we could have as small as 3, but no more than 5.
We talked about that.
But there being 15 of us, and there's 5 groups, and if it has to be 5.
Yeah, we voted to have that changed because of that.
Right.
Because it was gonna be.
So are we taking a vote now to change it to 3?
Well, let me keep going through.
That's what's in red that you sent.
So again, these are some of the changes that I'm asking folks. Like, did we discuss that in December?
We voted that. We voted on that.
You voted on that?
Does it say that in that approved one, Mr. Jett says?
It does not.
I shared with you.
It's 4 members.
Okay, so that's.
Not less than 4.
Your recommendation
Okay,
is
so you
composed of
changed it.
not less than 3 and not more than 5.
But yeah,
We
change it
can,
to
we
4.
can vote on it again, just so we don't have to, so it's clarity, it's easy, but.
Yeah, and then,
Make a motion.
Member West also made a comment on that, saying to do no less than 3 and not more than 6. So that's also in these revision suggestions. So I don't know if we.
I just wanted to make sure that we actually sort of had the discussion and made a decision, because it
Yeah.
seemed a little vague whether or not, the bylaws were finalized without having that informed decision made. And I'm happy to live with whatever was made, but it seemed very up in the air whether or not we had that discussion.
Thought we voted.
We did.
Okay,
We did.
We did.
We voted, it was approved, and I think it was just a miss in being implemented, and then, because you had missed that meeting, when you came back, you caught it, brought it to the attention.
I thought we did too.
We voted 3 of them.
Tell us, Mr. Cravens, if our recollection is correct, or do we need to vote, make a motion and vote again for the votes? Correct.
I can't remember how you all voted, but my version has not less than 4. I do not recall off the top of my head whether that was a motion that you all made at that meeting to modify it from the not less than 3 or 7 or whatever it was. There was a floor and a ceiling in there before, and now it just says not less than 4. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't have a legal concern with whatever number you all said.
Mm-hmm.
So if you all want to take a vote now, if you all want to revisit that and figure out what you all want to do, I'm happy to incorporate that change.
Very well.
All right.
So, Over to one.
You
Can we have okay, if there's no more, can we get a motion to change so that the language reads, each working group shall be composed of not less than 3 and not more than 5 members of the commission?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You said something, will you make?
I sent it back to you.
Oh,
And then under Article 12, decorum.
wait a minute, wait just 1 second. I'm a little older than you, my eyes.
No worries.
All this paperwork transition. Each working group
So essentially, we just voted on the language that's,
we took this out, yeah, right. We replaced this, all this with this, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
and then the last recommendation I had was under 12, decorum, where it says, previously, every member of the commission shall exercise decorum during discussion and debate, shall conduct him or herself in a courteous manner towards other members of the commission. I added as well as external stakeholders, just given sort of the history that we have with more than just members of the commission having.
All right, I got you.
So, and then at the very end of that paragraph, shall refrain from making personal attacks against the chair, vice chair, other members of the commission, and I put, or other persons external to the commission.
Okay, read that and see if that's not exactly what you just said.
It is, and this is the final one?
Yes.
Okay, I must have missed this one then. So that's in there then. That's the finalized one. And the rest of the sort of changes were with commission member Sass and West.
So before we move on, Article 12 is fine as it is in here because it's the exact same language that you, as well as external stakeholders. And then at the bottom, or against other persons, not external, no, it's not, it's external, I see. The change is at the last line, vice chair or other members of, other members of a commission or other persons external to the commission. That's what you suggested?
Right.
All right. We clear?
So 12 is good then?
It is not. This is not correct.
Okay.
We need a motion. Make your motion.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion to make those changes in the under Article 12 decorum. If you need me to read the changes again,
It's located on the second page
of
the document I passed around.
This was omitted.
I second that.
Second motion. I said the second motion. All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Did you want to go through any of yours?
Oh yeah, we're finished. Not finished.
Well, I think we had a discussion about the quorum and the tiebreaker, and if I remember correctly, we were going to just insert some language about the book, and it has left to me that we were just going to refer to there if there were any concerns. So I don't know if that was added or
When I
not,
heard
but
Ms.
that was
Sayers
the
look.
discussion.
before she had the meeting, but I needed another pair of eyes on it. All these
We
papers.
did have discussion about the quorum and tiebreaker, but I don't think there would ever be an instance where we would need a tiebreaker vote.
And I think that might be because we changed the number of the subcommittees so that we would never have that. So
I
I
know she
think
wrote
with,
here tiebreaker language.
Yeah.
That was missing. And on the copy that I have from you, choose B3 instead of vote not in a tie. That was your, in red. Should this be 3 instead of 4? 3 means everyone is on one subcommittee and votes not in a tie. So since we changed that, do we need to have specific language about a tiebreaker?
I mean, I don't think we're, I'm not married to that comment. It was just something I threw out there for discussion.
Right.
I would point out that Article 11 on page 5 already says that the rules contained in Robert's Rules of Order shall govern the commission in all matters in which they're applicable. And so I don't know that you need to say Robert's Rules applies in the quorum section if you've already generally said Robert's Rules applies.
Okay.
And I think that was where all that discussion happened and we left that out.
Okay.
So,
All right, so we're good with those two, basically those two changes. All right, Mr. Craven, you got them?
Yes, I got it.
All right.
I got a suggestion going forward. When the commission writes something, and there's gonna be a review by any external, whether it be lawyer, whatever, is that those are notated on whatever those changes are. So, for instance, when Mr. Curtis made a few changes, I think those should be brought to our attention.
I got you. So from here on out, if we do have a review of something, we'll request that what's brought to us comes out with the strikeouts and the add, and then the document that we can see.
Yes. We made it very,
Is that
very
all right?
clear. They want to know where the
Yeah.
language comes from, and that's
I
fair.
got you. That makes sense. That makes sense.
It's right here on this
Got
side.
fine by.
Special. That's the chair thing.
No, no, it's what do you want some of my colors? Stack over. All right, let's move on to our new business. And Ms. Tiffany, are you leaving? Ms. Brown, are you leaving this?
I am not today.
Huh?
I said I'm not today.
Oh, okay, these are my visitors. All right, well, come on up, welcome, join us. I believe this is the sense of place, remembering and celebrating the history of Fayette County's rural black hamlets. Before you get started, I go to church, and I didn't know, I did everything. In Jonestown. It used to be Jonestown. Huh?
I said they're on the list.
Yeah,
this
so-
week.
yeah.
So, first of all, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Evening, I guess now, it's evening, right?
Getting close.
So
Getting
thank you
close.
for having us and talk about the initiative that we've been working on for about a year. It's the brainchild.
Tell us who you are.
I was getting to that. This is an initiative that was started by Councilmember Pullman, and we're going to get into all that. My name is Clarissa Thomas. I'm one of the steering committee members. I am the Director of Education at the Lexington Public Library for the system. And we're going to go through, some of the steering committee members are here, and we'll go through that in our presentation.
Okay.
You do have a copy of it. I'm not going to read it to you because who wants that? But we are here to talk about, as you said, a sense of place, remembering and celebrating the history of Fayette County's rural black hamlets. What we would like to go over today is that we will introduce the steering committee. I already introduced myself.
I'm Mandy Higgins, the Executive Director of the Lexington History Museum.
And
Kathy Coleman, 12th District Councilman.
And Tiffany Brown, steering committee now chair, your chair.
Of this committee?
And so on the next, I thought we had a page of everybody, so you can read to see who all the members are. We are the ones in attendance, obviously. So let's talk a little bit about history and scope of the project. Like I said, it was the brainchild of Councilmember Fallon, and it came out of years of conversation and recommendations and reports about preserving the hamlets, the importance of the hamlets, but there was never any teeth put into those recommendations. Like, what are we gonna do to preserve the hamlets? What are we gonna do to make people aware of this rich cultural institutions, for the lack of a better word. So the steering committee was developed to educate council and the public just on what hamlets are, the importance of hamlets, and then do things to preserve the hamlets. And we'll talk specifically about what we're trying to do with this particular project. So that's why the steering committee was put together, like I said, about a year ago. We are concentrating our efforts on the only Rosenwald School, we'll talk about those a little later, of the 155 that were built in Kentucky. Cadentown, the Rosenwald School is one of the only ones. It is the only one left in Fayette County. And so we see a dire need to preserve this school. And that's a nationwide trend that the Rosenwald schools are going away. And so we do not want that to happen.
So we, as a committee, came up with a working definition for how we are defining this project in the hamlets. The dictionary definition is that a hamlet is a small human settlement, but within this project, we are focusing on rural, basically outside of the urban, what now is considered the urban services boundary, developed by Black folks between about the 1820s and the 1920s. In Fayette County, there are 20 of these that we've identified. 4 existed before emancipation, and the other 16 were formed after emancipation, either from the purchase of land by formerly enslaved or free Black families, or through gift, though that is very rare. Most of the time it was purchased. And in the Cadentown area, is a big part of this focus, as Clarissa said, because of the school, and to save that site from being demolished. The next couple of slides have the list of the hamlets that we've identified, working with our advisory committee, with local historians, and Dr. Giles, and the map is then also available there.
And we thought that, we go back to the map. We thought the map was important to show because sometimes these are not rural areas now, but just to give people context about where they were, how they developed as full functioning, self-sufficient communities for Black people. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Rosenwald schools. On the property that we're discussing, there are 3 parts. There's an old church, Cadentown Church, there's a Rosenwald school, and then there is a cemetery. And so many of you have probably heard about Rosenwald schools. Rosenwald was a wealthy magnate in the turn of the century, and he was a philanthropist in many types of initiatives, but one of the things that he wanted to is invest in Black communities. And so he gave money to start Rosenwald schools with the idea that the communities, that the Black formerly enslaved people would also give a financial contribution to the development of the schools. And so that's a huge part of it. It's not as if everything was gifted. It was definitely a big community. And so it was a school for Black people, by Black people, and we have one that's still standing in Cadentown. And although we're going to talk and preserve the memory of all of them, this is one that we're going to have our relics that we'll talk about later, and our museum type setup will be in this school. And if you haven't had a chance to tour it, please do. It's in fairly great condition for the age of the school.
It really is.
It is. If you want more information, the Kentucky room at the Lexington Public Library, we do have a book that one of the historical societies put together, and it's called Rosenwald Schools in Kentucky, specifically 1917 to, I can't remember the other number, but it talks specifically about all the Rosenwald schools in Kentucky, and it also talks about the development of educating Black students and the start of the Department of Education, what their initiative was first, and how it developed that. Now that these people are citizens, what are we going to do with them? How are we going to educate them? So it's a really great resource if you're interested. But I'm a teacher, so I can talk about all of that. I won't bore you. So as we said, the Cape Town Rosenwald School, it was owned by, or still is owned by LFUCG. It was used as a private residence for a number of years. Now, like I said, we want to restore it and the church and even the cemetery to preserve and to be a place where we can remember, have the artifacts, tell the oral histories, and those types of things.
That was my question. Say that
Yes,
again.
sir.
Who currently owns the school?
Parks and Recreation.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. And I think the tenants just moved out like maybe a year or two, a couple years ago. So it's empty right now. But not for long. So we have a picture and some plans of the school itself, typical schoolhouse during that time. And some exterior shots. And it looks better in person, actually, I think. Don't you guys
Yeah, that was
agree?
before the renovation. The next slide.
Yes, please.
So when Parks and Rec took with the help of the Cape Town Neighborhood Association, took over the property, there was some renovation. You'll see some pictures from our public engagement, but we wanted to also let you know how we plan to interpret these spaces and the importance of having public engagement in this work. So it's not just the steering committee, it's not just the historian saying this is what it was. We're bringing the community in, and we're seeking objects and opportunities to interpret materials from the public. That includes 2D and 3D items. You can see this list, collecting new oral histories, having volunteers. And the museum, the History Museum, will serve as the steward of those collections, used with our insurance and all of the proper museum things to make sure that they are maintained and made available to the public within that space, and online sites, and working with the library to do that as well. We have had one community meeting, and you can see the renovated school, at Caden Town in March. We had about 50 people attend that meeting, started to get some really good feedback, some folks engaged in wanting to help us do this. As you can see these images, the room was packed, it was wonderful, and we're very, very excited for what can come out of that. We are still working to develop neighborhood advisory councils for each of the hamlets, so that there's a voice from each hamlet helping to interpret those spaces, and that we have shared authority, which is just a fancy museum word of saying that everybody's involved and we're coming together. These neighborhood councils will work with the steering committee to make sure that the interpretation is strong, and that we are guided by living descendants in the work that we're doing. So we are actively looking for folks who have connections to these rural hamlets to join us on the steering committee, or on the advisory committee, and we'll give you a link for where you can sign up if you know folks are interested in doing that. And now, go ahead.
We have identified some already, but we're looking for more. So before we get to the next part, remember, historic preservation is a little bit pricey. Even when you're restoring a cemetery, there are certain things that you have to do to restore. You can't just go in there and cut things. So we're restoring 3 spaces. That's our hope. So then we go to the next part.
I get the show me the money part. Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Fleming, and I represent the 12th District. And just for a little background information, the 12th District is 70% of the land mass of Fayette County. So when these rural settlements were out there, they were all in the 12th District. So before I leave office, whatever that may be, I really am committed to making sure that as a community that we recognize and we celebrate these rural Black communities, because they contribute, I've got a sore throat. throat, I'm sorry. They've contributed so much to our history, how we evolved as a city and a county, and they need to be recognized. So this is the project, and I always tell everybody when I talk about it, this is a cool project. It's overdue, and we've got a great group of people, and we've got some cool plans about the Rosenwald School, the grounds, and so my background is actually fundraising. Timothy, I used to run the United Way, and I actually like to fundraise, and I did Breaking the Bronze Ceiling not too long ago. So I said, I'll raise the money. You count it, I'll raise it. Don't think to count it. But so what we're going to do, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's thunder here, what we're going to do on Juneteenth, is we're going to go ahead and have the official, if you will, fundraising, official campaign kickoff, and we'll announce our goal. And it could be that this goal is going to be in phases because we're not sure exactly yet what this is all going to entail. But the Rosenwald School, pretty good shape. It is historically recognized, so we can't go in and change it dramatically. One of the things we need to do is we need to have some restrooms. We can't put them in the school, but the church, the old Cadentown Church, is right there at the front of it. And there are 2 restrooms right in there, so we're going to renovate those. And then the cemetery. There's over 100 graves back there, and most unmarked, and so we want to see what that looks like. So we'll be kicking off, and I believe this is the committee's signature event on Juneteenth, correct? Is this kind of something for the cities, maybe?
Yeah.
I'm looking at Commissioner Ford out back there. And so we'll be going ahead and we'll announce the campaign is on. It's called A Sense of Place. We'll announce our goal. And I will tell you, and I want to show you this because I love this graphic. And our steering committees, because that's the county right there. And then we've got the black figure that's kind of showing the outreach that there was into our county back in the mid-1800s and still today. And so we'll be announcing the goal, but we've had a lot of good response. I mean, a lot of people say, count me in. And so I think we'll definitely get really close. I mean, I'd like to kick off with 30 or 40% of our goal that we're going to announce that day. So, and I'm going to send this to Tiffany, but I've got a list, I've got a fundraising committee that we've come up with sources that we think are potential donors. I'm going to send it to Tiffany. She can send it out to you. Add to the list. There's a lot of interest in this. It's a cool project. The community supports it, and we wanted to share it with you today. Kind of right out of the starting gate. So thank you, and if we can, any of us can answer questions, let us know.
Well, what comes immediately to my mind is what are you initially? What's the first step? I mean, we're gonna do the kickoff, and so
we're gonna raise
is the focus right now with Cadentown for the schools, the music.
What this is going to be used for, I'm not really sure we've addressed that. This is going to kind of be a receptacle, if you will, for, well, I think you mentioned, a receptacle for artifacts, for pictures, for storytelling. It can be used on Sunday afternoons, like the Hamlets used to do a great celebration after church where everybody do a potluck. We can change out Hamlets in terms of what you can see. It's not going to be open every day. It'll probably be open by appointment. We can have school trips there, but that's the place we're going to center it on. But we'll be recognizing all the Hamlets from that location.
From that, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Our next event is May 13th. Oh, sorry, I can't read.
May 23rd.
23rd.
May 23rd. I can't, it's too far for me. In Jimtown. And so this event we'll be doing something similar for those that came out to the event at the Cadentown, old Cadentown Church. So we'll be having a presentation similar to one that you all received today, but then it's also a community input session as well. So we'll be doing some guided input where community can give us feedback. So what's important to them to preserve. Feel free to join us.
Are the David sisters going to be singing?
The Edwards
sisters.
Well, I'm sure they'll be there as part of celebrating the history of Jimtown.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Very exciting.
So we'll love you.
So I have a question. This is housed library or LFUCG? Who's housing it? Where's this housed at? Like, who's going to be the driving force behind this?
We've got a few ideas about what we're going to do. Right now, it's really a community grassroots approach that really was started out at the 12th District office, but is brought brought in stakeholders, and that's kind of how it's gonna continue. At some given point, we will have to define exactly where it goes from there. Once we have the renovations going and everything's moving forward, then there'll be some decisions held.
I don't really have a question, more of a comment. Thank you all for coming and talking to us today about this. Thank you to the commission members. I think this is a cool project. In fact, I live in the area that was, I guess, known as Coal Town out in the 12th district, and it was the reason why my family and I decided to move there, because our broker told us that this was once upon a time a black enclave. So that's what we decided to make our Lexington home in that area. So I look forward to sort of being involved any way I can. I'm not necessarily indigenous to Lexington, but we live here now, and we live in that area, so anything we can do to help support, count on us. So thank you for being here.
And you're gonna send us the list that we could add to if you think of something, right? Okay. Very good, thank you all. That is a nice project, and as you say, well overdue. All right. Ms. Tiffany, tell us about the racial justice and equality, the report,
Yes, so we are, according to the ordinance, there's a report that should come from this commission yearly. That can or cannot include, or it can be limited, as it pertains to recommendations. But it just details the work of this commission over the last year. So wanted to start getting that on the radar for everyone. I'll probably meet with the each commission individually to discuss at you all's next committee meeting, excuse me, to discuss what that looks like, what support you need in developing your committee reports, and then meet with the chair to help to develop the full commission report for the year. But this would include the recommendations that Mr. Johnson suggested. I think the direction that we need from this commission is maybe an agreeable timeline as to when you all want to have this completed. That's really what's holding up. What we would not want to do is to have a letter going to the administration and council every other month with new recommendations. So we want everything to be cohesive. And so if that looks like we want to have it done in October, that would be the deadline that would give us time to work through those processes. And I can support you in getting those reports completed and packaged in a way that is
I have a question. So we technically have a report due every year.
yes.
So we didn't do one in March. Like we started in March, we didn't do one in March. So are you saying that we are allowed like an extension and to include the last 18 months? Or do we need to do a report based on what happened that first year and then work on our report for March of 24?
I think the extension is more the route, and it can detail what has been done in that time frame, like creating the foundation for this commission,
Right,
such as the
I have
bylaws.
notes for each month.
Yes. So we have,
What happened.
yeah, we have all of them, and then so that way, especially if it's October, we're not trying to get a report in March when that's when a lot of terms will be cycling. If that makes sense.
I think it makes sense to just start from this
Yeah,
initial
whenever you-
report from the time we started to
Yeah,
October.
till you
or
do. Yeah, until it's published.
Because it took us a while, to be honest, and in between different ones, meeting, and took several of the presentations took the entire, meeting time, so it's doable, but, we had some growing pains, and because, like I say, we were at the meeting, it's kind of like, it evolves how it evolves, and just listening to your report and this report, it has evolved. But it took a while. Yeah, we get a report.
So is October a good time? I mean, do we want to decide on that today? I was throwing it out there as a suggestion, but I would not like to really prolong that process.
So the full commission meets in May. Our subcommittees meet again in June. August, and then October.
And so I
So
was
we
gonna
only
talk
have
about-
three, well, essentially 2 meetings left before we would have to submit to you to then have a full report
If
to the
it's October,
commission
it's-
or to the council by October.
If it's October, I think the report is gonna have to be included with every from the committee agenda from here on. But I was concerned, was when I was driving down, thinking, okay, we already come in, we had last year, what month was it, June? When we didn't have a meeting because we had a lot of, I think, vacation and people would not be here. And so this is May, July would be
July, we're
would be
meeting,
the
I think,
next
July
full.
5th.
Yeah, July, no, it was July. And so that's when we meet next, is July. So, as a full commission, so, you know, let's just say October, we'll get it done. It's not, you know, we'll get
And
it done.
I
think so.
can be as much, as much support as needed.
Oh, I know you always have been, I say that, and I don't say that facetiously. It's October, does that sound all right with you all? Don't let me make say it for everybody. We good? Anybody having problems? All right, so we'll set October for our date to have it, to give to you, so you pass on to the, whoever it goes to, okay? I have a lot of recommendations about October. Just rename the city.
Same town.
Yeah, I think that's it on the report.
Okay,
But-
so,
I do want to bring up that the next commission meeting is on July 5th. So I don't know if you all want to put on your radars now to schedule it for another time. Folks are going to be out.
let's make that
So we don't-
decision now, please. Look at your calendar, Christopher, please. Might have things to see, it's supposed to be out of town, it's hanging off this one. Stop me, y'all have to work, I got July 5th, let's see. A week later. If we do it a week later, well, that pushes the committee meetings back a week, but will that be a problem for everybody?
Won't be a problem, I won't be here, but it won't be a problem.
You won't be here the 5th or the next week, like the week
12th?
after 12th?
Yeah, that's my conflict.
Yeah, I'll be out as well that week.
I ain't asking you to bring me nothing back from your country.
Sitting in Dallas one week.
Next year, you won't, in town.
So we have 2 out on the 12th. How many are out on the 5th?
You'll be out on the
2 out on
5th?
the 5th, so.
I'm out on the 12th.
I'm not, the 5th is good for me, I can keep it fine. Just keep it the 5th? All right, let's just leave it, who said they was out the 5th? Okay. Y'all won't be offended if we just leave it the 5th, please? Okay. He's already gonna miss the second meeting.
We'll have you the chair or something, man. What's gonna happen? Welcome back.
Everyone down there, let's talk about this thing.
I've been at those meetings where I've done that to people, so that'd be karma.
All right, 5th, that's good. Will that be a problem for you?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll take vacation afterwards.
Okay. I need to get where I am every day.
Rub it in.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
would like
ma'am.
to make a comment, please. Just to let everyone know, the affordable housing is doing wonderful. We have one unit that's totally, completely capacity. 212 families have been served. And the mayor added on $2 more million to the affordable housing budget. So everything is going good. And plus, she also added, someone was talking about rent, 33% increase for rent and utilities for the city. But the affordable housing is on track. It's doing really good. So basically, we're fulfilling our recommendations as on the 2020 report. They're doing wonderful.
I'm sorry, may I ask for a clarification? You said 33% increase?
Our budget.
No, in the budget for the rent and utilities, that was something, I think you were saying
To
something
be
about
given as
rent.
assistance?
Right, as assistance for
Okay,
rent and
good.
utilities.
Yeah, I was like, like.
Yeah,
I thought
like
you
the
meant
cost
something
of it is
else. Yeah, I'm like, what?
Right, yeah, that's the increase.
Outstanding.
But she added $2 more million to the affordable housing. And the units that's left that's not filled, they'll be filled, so some of them will be filled this summer and some next summer. So I'm really keeping up with all this because I'm really passionate about this because the city is doing a wonderful job.
And what I suggest you turn these tables up, that's part of the report. Keep your notes. And, I mean, don't get rid of it, that's
Right.
part of the report.
Right.
You know,
But I
it's
was
one-
gonna do that for the subcommittee, but I wanted to.
Yeah,
let you all
no,
know.
no,
Yeah, I
it's
wanted to
good.
let you all know.
Quick clarification,
that I'm-
2 million and 33%, or the 2 million represents the 33%?
No, that's totally different. The
Okay.
2 million is for the affordable housing.
And then
We already have a
33%.
budget of 13 million, 30, I think, I can't remember the exact, I think it's 13 million from last year, and she added 2 more million on this year.
Okay.
The utility is totally different. That's for rent. I think someone was saying something about evictions.
Prevention.
Yeah,
Prevention,
yeah.
and she added 33% increase onto that. So I'm not sure what the budget is for that. That was in her budget report.
Okay.
But I'll get with my committee members and it's the issue that a lot of people are not understanding what affordable housing is. They're saying, well, how is it affordable housing if it's I think it's $884 a month for one unit. But out in the real world, it's like $1,250. So they're not understanding the concept of affordable housing, which is 3 stages. If you have affordable housing, then if you have a Section 8 coupon, it goes cheaper. So the real world might be $1,200, affordable housing might be $700, Section 8 coupon voucher will make it maybe $400. So it's really confusing. So we're gonna try to figure out how we can get the word out to people, because people are not understanding. I've had to help 3 or 4 people. I got one lady in the Arboro because somebody told her she didn't qualify. I made one phone call, she got in that same day, 3 kids. And that's what, so we're working hard, so I'll keep everybody abreast on it. But I just want to say they're doing a wonderful job with the affordable housing.
Anything else? If not, may I have a motion? Thank you all, and once again, welcome Mr. Phil John. And I'll see you, guess when I see you. And welcome back, Mr. Dale. Glad to have you back with us.
Glad to be back.
All right. If there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
He's gonna expire.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you all so much.